Thank you for tuning in to the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast, where we discuss the latest news, rumors, and games of the NFL and college football. As always, I'm Jeremiah.
And I'm Anthony.
And, man, what a wild and crazy 24 hours it has been in the NFL. We didn't do a show yesterday for, I guess, construction around the office.
Right, there was going to be too much noise everywhere, and they're just like, yeah, that's not going to work. You just stay home kind of thing.
And so, we slept in because we do this in the morning. We're here on a Friday morning on March 10th, and we're going to discuss we're going to try to cover mostly everything that happened yesterday, and we had a lot happening. Alden Smith, Scott McClugan, they got into a couple of issues. But we're going to talk about them at the end of the show. Of course, we're going to talk about some of the biggest free agent signings that happened yesterday. But most importantly, we're going to discuss quarterbacks in this show. And we're going to start with probably the biggest trade that we had. And we're going to talk about probably one of the biggest names in the league, or as that's in the market right now, and that's Tony Romo.
Allegedly on the market.
Yeah, allegedly. But let's talk about what Tony Romo first. He was suspected to be released.
Right.
Now he looks like he's about to be traded.
Yeah, it allegedly. That's a weird thing. Like, why? Hold on. So it went from a year ago, oh, Tony Romo's great. He's going to be a quarterback forever. Oh, yeah, it's Dak Prescott guy. Yeah. He's just going to be the backup, and maybe he's good. Then Dak Prescott gets good, and then all of a sudden it's like, okay, we got to trade Romo. Okay, cool. Then they went through that whole process of trying to trade Romo. That didn't work out. No one wanted him because, by the way, he makes a lot of money, and it's easier just to get him if he's a free agent because you don't have to pay the, 16, 18, whatever $1 million it is that you owe him. So they decided to do that, and then eventually they were just like, all right, whatever, fine, we're just going to release you. Okay, fine. That's the logical next step. We all understand that.
Yeah, and then Tony Romo...
Oh, sorry.
And then what? No,
I was saying, and then all of a sudden it went from, no, actually we're going to trade him. Wait, what? But now you're going to, for what? Like, there's a limited amount of teams that want him, or not that want him, a lot of teams will want him, but a limited amount of teams that, A, he would want to go to because Jerry Jones is still, his boy, so he can kind of like be like, Jerry, I don't want to go to the Browns. Please don't send me to the Browns. Jerry, why have you forsaken me? I don't want to go to the Browns. So there's only a few teams like the Denver Broncos or the Houston Texans that he can go to that make sense pretty much for everybody. So the whole trade thing doesn't make as much sense to me. It just seems kind of weird.
Yeah, and, so I honestly, though, when they were going to release him, that would mean that Tony Romo would have had his choice, but he was probably going to go to Denver or Houston anyway.
Right. And
I think they know that they're going to get something for him. Because these are the two teams I do think that fit Tony Romo the best. Denver, they can go to the Super Bowl with Tony Romo. I do think they can be a Super Bowl contender.
Mm-hmm.
Houston, they probably have the easiest division if they get Tony Romo.
That division's so bad.
Yeah, I think the biggest probably threat to the Texans that they get Romo is probably the Titans, because I do think they have a little more offensive talent than the Colts do, and I know the Colts have Andrew Luck, but that's all they have is Andrew Luck.
They have Andrew Luck and like a bunch of other guys they just picked up. Like, hey, you want to play football? You want to play wide receiver? You seem fast enough. Come here, come on.
Pick him off. Hey, what's your 40 time? It's a 4.22. All right, you in there?
Yeah. Oh my God.
I'm kidding. John Ross is good, man.
He is really good. Like I wish Al Davis was still alive, because if he was still alive, he would have gone to Oakland.
No, oh my God. I think there was a meme about that. I think because you're a wrestling fan. I know for a fact you're a wrestling fan.
Mm-hmm.
And I grew up watching WWE, WWF.
Right.
And there was a meme with when the Undertaker, when he gets up, like he rises from the dead in the ring. I think the meme says Al Davis when he ran that 40 time, and it was just a picture of Undertaker. Rising.
That's what they did with Darius Hayward Bay. He was super fast. And they didn't take Crabtree kind of thing. That was one of those weird.
And they got Crabtree anyway, but
they ended up getting
Crabtree anyway. But anyways, getting back to this whole Tony Romo situation here, the Cowboys now believe that they will have a trade in place for with the Broncos and the Texans. And remember, the Broncos, they've been kind of in talks with other teams to trade Trevor Siemian. So it's probably going to be Tony Romo, Paxton Lynch, and whoever else they decide to pick up as a third quarterback, who knows? They might just go with two quarterbacks. They all do. But Tony Romo did have he posted a video on his official Instagram account, and then he just wanted to say, it's been a crazy 48 hours. He wanted to thank Cowboys Nation for that. He had Bob Dylan playing in the background. I'm not sure if you saw that video, Anthony.
I like how, it's a funny thing with the video because there's Bob Dylan playing in the background. No major network can play it because of the rights on the thing, so they just ended up showing the video of just him talking, whatever else like that, but there's no audio to it. There's no sound. It was just Romo basically talking, and you can't hear a thing. It's like, oh yeah, that's Romo over there. We can't play it because we don't want to get sued, and we don't have to owe a bunch of money to Bob Dylan's corporate, whatever you want to call it, estate or whatever it is, the people that control whether or not the songs get played over TV and stuff like that.
Yeah. So, I do expect Tony Romo to end up one of these teams. If I had to pick one, I'm just going to limb and say it will be Houston. For a couple of reasons.
Okay, you go. Say why.
Okay. One, they just traded that big old fat contract from Brock Osweiler.
Right.
So they can pay Tony Romo.
They can.
And I do think that I honestly think this is the final piece of that team.
I totally get it. And here's the thing.
But that contract's the big one for me. They have the money to pay him.
The contract does help, but the thing is, though, if it's Romo, you don't have to have that much money saved, right? Because you're not signing Romo to a 3-year, $54 million contract. You're signing him for relatively cheap, considering it's Tony Romo, because he's still getting the money from the Cowboys after he gets cut, right? If he gets traded, then that's one thing. But the only way I can see Romo being traded, outside of it's to maybe the Chiefs or something like that, or some team loses its quarterback and all of a sudden now they're desperate. I never understood / I never could see them trading, the Cowboys that is, trading Tony Romo to the Texans for no other reason than you're going to take Jerry Jones, dude with probably the biggest ego in professional sports, which is saying a lot.
That is saying a lot, actually. When you think of the biggest egos in sports,
he's probably...
Jerry Jones is up there.
I mean, and rightfully so. The dude's got oil money. The dude played football at, I think, Oklahoma. And once he got there, won 3 Super Bowls pretty much right off the bat. For the last 20-something years, he hasn't been the same thing. But, still has an ego for being an owner as well. You're going to tell me that he is going to take not only his quarterback, but his quarterback that he loves Romo a lot, and you're going to take him and you're going to trade him to another Texas team. Not to the New Orleans Saints, if they didn't have a quarterback. Not to the New Orleans Saints, not to a team like the Minnesota Vikings, not to a team like the Miami Dolphins, right? I'm assuming all these people don't have quarterbacks. I understand they all have quarterbacks that are playing at least decently well. But it's one thing if you trade him to another team like that, you're going to trade him in the state of Texas. I understand it's a different conference, a different division, it's different everything.
But it's also a Texas team.
Texas.
Yeah.
You're literally... The only way you would play them is if it's in the Super Bowl, and oh my God, you imagine how that would be if it was the Houston Texans and Dallas Cowboys, and you get Jerry Jones, oh my God, we're going to play against Romo, oh my God. You're really going to... I can't see him trading him to Houston. Denver, fine. Kansas City, fine. Any other team you want to say that's relatively close, even the Jets, fine. All these things or whatever, if you face them, that's fine. I just can't see him trading him in the state of Texas.
Okay, well, I can see that point, honestly, because...
The money makes sense, but
that's something that did put into account, honestly, too. But
the money thing
I think the Texans, I think they're going to... I think they're going to try to blow away the Jerry Jones and the Cowboys here.
Maybe, and I'm not saying
they're going to try to. I'm not. Yeah,
but I'm
not saying that Denver's not going to, because I do think they have a fair chance of acquiring Tony Romo. But I kind of feel like the Texans are going to pull off this big. I think they're going to blow. I think they're going to blow them away. I just have a feeling.
Well, I'm not even saying that they don't go after a quarterback, the Houston Texans, right? Because hell, if they want to be kind of weird about it, they can just go after Jay Cutler or something like that, right? They can go after another quarterback that's available. Hell, they can just basically go, well, no, never mind. That's in the same division. They're not going to do it with the Redskins. Never mind. But, they can just, go aggressively after another quarterback, right? It doesn't have to be Tony Romo because, look, as much as we all love Tony Romo, myself included, we got to forget the dude's not healthy. Like, he doesn't stay healthy, so you're going to invest all that into a quarterback that might get hurt. You might as well just, at that point, if he's not going to stay healthy, maybe you just, like, look at Jay Cutler and it's just like, we're going to give you 1 year. We're going to give you 1 year with this defense, with this running game, with these receivers. We're giving you 1 year. And if you screw it up, you're done. You know, like...
So you're talking about the Texans should go after Jay Cutler if they don't get Tony Romo?
Yeah, because you still need a quarterback because you don't know if Tom Savage is good or not. Maybe it works out, maybe it doesn't. But at the same time, who knows? Like, Cutler's the dude that's kind of sitting there right now because...
Remember, we can't forget Colin Kaepernick's still in the market, too.
He's not... Here's the thing, like,
We have seen what Kaepernick can do with a good team around him. He went to the Super Bowl with a good team around, and Houston has a good team.
So, you know, like, I love anarchy, yes.
I know you do.
So there's, like...
But honestly, though, with him and his little past protests, that's the reason why I don't see him going to Houston.
No. Oh, God, no. In Texas? You gonna do that in Texas? No.
But for football reasons, though, I can see that being a fit. But for political reasons, yeah,
they will shoot him in Texas.
It's not going to happen.
They will shoot him in Texas. They have concealed carries all around.
If you can win him a Super Bowl, I don't think they'll care.
Well, here's the thing, like, with Kaepernick, like, okay, the anarchist in me, look, I never root for injuries because that's mean. You don't want to see people get injured because, you know, this is their job. And if you get injured...
that's so stupid and asinine that people, like, do that, you know?
Look, man, what if... It's hypothetical. Throwing stuff out there, right? Let's say, you know, it's the second week of the season. Kaepernick's still not signed because, to be fair, he's not that great of a quarterback. It's not like you need him on your team, right? Maybe he's still available. And then all of a sudden, he drops back, scrambles around a little bit, and then, oh no, Alex Smith gets hurt. Then you bring in Colin Kaepernick.
To the Kansas City Chiefs?
And now he gets benched twice for Kaepernick. Like, there's
Can you imagine? Oh, like, my gosh.
There's this evil, vindictive side of me that's just like, yes, that's mean. Yes, that's a horrible thing for Alex Smith. Also, funny.
No,
in some ways, that's funny.
In a way, it is, but man,
it's a little bit of a Greek tragedy with that.
That would be something. Can you imagine that, dude? If that happens, Alex Smith's career will be defined by being injured and being replaced by Kaepernick twice. If that would happen, that's crazy to think about. Though.
I do want to see where he goes, Kaepernick. Though
I do think I am interested. I don't see him going to Chicago with them, paying for Mike Glennon.
So there's right.
I could probably see him going to the Jets, but I think the Jets are more interested in Jay Cutler. But I do think no matter which team doesn't get Tony Romo, whether that's Denver or Houston, I think if Houston gets Tony Romo, I can see Denver taking a flyer at Kaepernick. But if Denver gets Tony Romo, I think Kaepernick would be a good fit for that team, but I just think that there will be kind of like a PR backlash. And, you know, when you think of Texas, it's probably the biggest red state there is in America.
Probably.
And a lot of people they're going to be really too conservative with his political views.
Yeah.
And I don't see that being a good thing for Kaepernick and the Texans. I think it would be a little too much of a distraction. But, you know, that's a reason why I don't see him there.
Sure. And here's the thing. The best case scenario for Kaepernick, honestly, is probably him going to, like, the Green Bay Packers or the New Orleans Saints. Some team where it's like, okay, this is our quarterback. Don't even just stop. Like, that's our quarterback. You know, everybody else don't worry about it. And you just basically bring him to Green Bay or to New Orleans, and you basically have the quarterback coach basically look at Kaepernick and be like, okay, everything you're doing, stop. We're not doing that anymore. We're totally going to tweak with what you're doing, and we're going to make you better, right? Because that was the word with Aaron Rodgers when he got drafted. Whatever he is now, maybe the best quarterback we've ever seen, that's not how he was coming out of Cal. They tweaked with that a little bit when he was the backup to Favre. So maybe you bring him in and basically say, like, okay, we're just going to mess with Kaepernick and we're going to try and make him a better quarterback, make his release not so weird, make him not stare down people for so long, not throw it like 90 miles an hour when the wide receiver's 2 feet away from him. You know, kind of tweak with a little bit like this to make him a little bit better. But, you know, there's still a couple other quarterback situations, you know, that, you know, we'll see how it all shakes out. Romo, I mean, he's not going to stay in Dallas. Like, I can't see at this point him actually staying in Dallas.
If he's a Dallas Cowboy, I would be surprised.
Because it's a reverse of Tom Brady, right? Brady's a little bit older than you get Garoppolo. So it's a reverse of that. And then you got Jay Cutler out there. He's just going to wait for like a team to, basically need his services, and then just be like, okay, maybe he goes to the Jets, which honestly that might be the most Jets move I've ever seen in my life. You bring in Jay Cutler.
that would be the definition of
it would be the most Jetsiest move you've ever seen.
It would be.
Bringing in someone that basically everyone around the NFL hates. He's talented but not good, and he would just do well enough to get some money, but they wouldn't win anything, and then, just the Jets.
Yeah, and that would be the most Jets move ever that I have seen. But we do expect Tony Romo to be traded soon.
Right.
I think it might be the Texans, you say the Broncos. But either or, he's a good fit for those two teams. And I do think no matter where Tony Romo goes, to the Broncos or the Texans, he's going to make both of those teams a Super Bowl contender.
Yeah.
No doubt. They're going to be a Super Bowl contender, no doubt. These two teams have very good defenses, very good. They got very good offensive weapons, too. So it'll be interesting to see where Tony Romo will go. And obviously, he knows he's going to be gone because he wouldn't have posted that Instagram message for anything.
Right.
All right, well, we're going to take our first break, and we have more quarterbacks to talk about. We're going to talk about Brock Osweiler. Yeah, and they going to the Cleveland Browns. We're going to talk about the the disastrous dumpster fire that is the Washington football team in the NFL. And we're going to talk about their quarterback, Kirk Cousins. And, he's not very happy. And we're going to talk about a fake Instagram post, or should I say a hacked account of Jimmy Garoppolo. Apparently saying, peace out, Boston. So we're going to talk about all that when we get back to the Going to Me Concepts Football Podcast.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. Hey! The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy, football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. Whatever it may be. Visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play.
And welcome back to Going to Me Concepts Football Podcast. And we have still have a lot to talk about today. Man, it was a busy day yesterday in the NFL. We talked about Tony Romo possibly going to the Texans. Well, the Texans actually made a little bit of a quarterback move themselves, but they traded their top prize free agent from last season to the Cleveland Browns. Remember, Brock Osweiler was the man last free agency. He was basically kind of like Mike Glennon, basically. Because I would say Kirk Cousins, but Kirk Cousins is technically not a free agent. Tony Romo is not going to be a free agent. So, yeah, he's basically last year's Mike Glennon. And he proved that he could. He pretty much proved that he played like a backup last year. So the Texans traded Brock Osweiler to the Browns. And, the Browns have a lot of money to take that $16 million salary. And Cleveland also received the Texans' 2018 second-round pick, their 2017 sixth-round pick, and Houston will get a 2017 fourth-round pick and will save $10 million in salary cap space and $16 million in cash this season. So, this was probably one of the most shocking moves that I've seen this year. And it's funny because the Browns are looking to trade or cut Brock Osweiler. So basically, this is the equivalent of an NBA buyout type of move. That's basically all I see.
Basically, yeah. It's, I felt a little bit bad for Osweiler because, obviously he was terrible last year, right? No one's
and he was like the hottest free agent last year, too.
Right, but then basically halfway through the season, everybody, myself included, was like, oh, yeah, no, never mind. He's got to go. Get him away. Stop having him throw to the tight end. Don't Stop throwing to Fedorowicz. And now he got traded to the Browns, and the Browns are basically going Moneyball style, right? Because they literally have one of the guys that was in the Moneyball situation over in Oakland. And they basically have Osweiler. Now they're just kind of like, well, I don't want this. Like, why? Like, it's like a regifting thing you get. It's just like, well, this was nice at one time, but, I mean, you didn't want it, so why do I want it now? And they're basically just, like, holding it up like, I got an Osweiler here. Who wants the Osweiler? You want us? Why is nobody wanting the Osweiler? We just have the Osweiler to ourselves. No one wants to trade for the Osweiler? All right. So maybe they trade him. Maybe they cut him. Maybe they whatever. He's there now, and that frees up a lot of space, like we were talking about, for the Texans to potentially get Romo or Cutler or whoever you want to say. And it was a strange move because all of a sudden it was like, okay, we're getting all these picks and we're eating all of this money, them being the Browns, just to basically get some draft picks.
Yeah, and I think if the Browns could buy out Osweiler's contract, I think they would have done it by now, but I don't think they can. They can't do it like the NBA does. You know, when the NBA routine, they do this all the time. You know, they even happened in the trade deadline this year in the NBA. You know, they do these, they trade these players to get the contracts off their teams, and you know,
and it takes a second because with the NBA they do buyouts.
They do buyouts and all that. Yeah, so this is basically the equivalent of that.
Mm-hmm.
And I gotta tell you something, Anthony, and the listeners out there. Westgate, the Las Vegas Superbook, they adjusted the Texans' odds from 41 to 20-1 to win Super Bowl 52 after they traded Osweiler. So just trade him away kind of improved their odds.
I mean,
and this is a team that has Tom Savage at quarterback.
Right. I think they're assuming they're going to get a better quarterback, right? I don't think this is whole Savage. They're saying like, oh, this is going to be Savage. They're assuming they're going to get some better quarterback to play, you know, for the next year or two, like, you know, and depending on if they keep him or not. Like if it's Romo, it'll only be for a couple of years. But I think they're assuming that whoever's on the roster right now isn't going to be the starter going forward.
I only think Cleveland made this trade because of picks. Only reason why. I think the Texans were like, yeah, we're not trading these picks unless you can take Osweiler.
Right.
You don't even have to keep him. Just get him off their hands, guys. Get this contract off.
So it's basically a law of averages kind of thing, right, for the Browns. It's like we're just going to keep – because you can talk about how the draft picks they've had hasn't been good, right, especially the quarterbacks that they've taken. You know, there's jokes and memes and there's jerseys that have been made about all the quarterbacks that they've taken basically since 1999. But if you take enough picks, like if you have enough picks in the first round, in the second round, the third, the fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh round, if you have like, you know, all of these picks left and right, you're going to hit on a few just because, I mean, you have to at some point. You can't be that bad at it. You can't literally take 14 picks in a round or in a whole draft. Let's say they have 2 in every round. You literally can't take 14 of them and every one of them stinks. Like, it's almost impossible to do that.
Yeah, and I think that's the reason why. It's all about improving that team.
Mm-hmm.
I think, honestly, Cleveland is giving Hugh Jackson they're giving him a lot of time. I think they're going to give him at least like 2 more years to build this team because this team is depleted with it's a depleted roster. They're not as depleted as the 49ers, but they made some moves. But still, this is a very terrible roster, and they made some moves to improve their offensive line in the past few days.
Right.
But with the quarterbacks here, honestly, if you think about the quarterbacks on the roster now, we think of RG3, Cody Kessler, Kevin Hogan. I don't know, but you might have to say maybe Osweiler is the best quarterback on this roster if he stays.
Right.
Maybe. But honestly, though, I wouldn't be surprised if Osweiler is a free agent. But I do think that there will be teams that will be interested in him. And this is the thing that really made me laugh about this. When Sashi Brown, he said in a statement, he didn't even mention Brock Osweiler in the first sentence. This is what he says. We're really excited to acquire a second-round draft choice in this trade. Draft picks are extremely important to our approach in building a championship-caliber team. We are intent on adding competition to every position on our roster and look forward to having Brock come in and compete. They didn't say anything about Brock Osweiler to the end of the statement. So basically, this was for draft picks.
And it said to compete, not to be the guy, right?
Yeah.
Do you remember when LeBron James went back to Cleveland after he left Miami? And he talks about all the love he felt for the city of Cleveland and talked about all the players that were there. And some of the players, like, Deion Waiters weren't mentioned in the thing. Andrew Wiggins wasn't mentioned in the thing. And they're like, oh, they're going to trade him. And it's just like, oh, it's a cynical way of looking at it. But then that ended up happening because that was a very calculated memo that he basically sent out. this kind of thing looks like the same thing. It looks like the Browns are just like, yeah, we got all the stuff. It's very nice. And what, Osweiler? Oh, that's right, we got Osweiler. Yeah, and Osweiler, he'll compete too. Yeah. No, yeah, he'll compete for the starting job. Yeah, I'm sure we love him trading as soon as we possibly can.
They're like, oh, crap, we drafted him. Crap, we traded for him too. Oh, man.
Right, he was in the move. I thought we just got draft picks. We got him too. How good was that? Oh, he was so bad last year. Okay, yeah, trade him away. Trade him as soon as you can.
Honestly, they probably didn't realize that they even traded for him.
They're just like, oh, we got a quarterback too? Okay, is he good? He's not good? Oh, no.
They probably didn't realize that. And they're like, oh, crap.
But now they're trying
to. No.
But now they're trying to trade for an actually good quarterback or someone we think's a good quarterback. Honestly, here's the thing with Garoppolo, right? Garoppolo is, or not Garoppolo. The Patriots are ESPN. I told a buddy about this yesterday. The Patriots are like ESPN, and this is why I say this. All of us understand that ESPN is kind of the mecca of everything, right? As far as sports go. Like, we can talk about Fox Sports 1, we can talk about Vice Sports, we can talk about HBO, we can talk about all this stuff, right? They are all good, they all do the things and whatever. ESPN's the giant. Like, it's really hard to break them down and even, like, cut into their, like, viewership or anything else like that because they've been doing it since, like, the 70s, right? So they kind of have a foothold on everything. And you can bring in people. You can bring in Colin Cowherd. You can bring in Dan Le Batard. You can bring in Bomani Jones. You bring in whoever you want. And all of them are going to get bigger simply because they're on ESPN. And then once they leave, not the same. Every now and then you get some exceptions. Dan Patrick seemed to do pretty good once he got his own show on NBC Sports. Keith Olbermann's still trying to do stuff. He's got hit and miss stuff every now and then.
Yeah, he kind of jumped into, like...
Politics.
Politics
which he did before he came back. Mm-hmm. But it's like a really hard thing to. Rich Eisen, kind of in the NFL Network's done pretty well for himself, but that's also the NFL Network, so that probably helps a little bit because it's so centered on one thing. But it's really hard to basically be good once you leave there. And the reason why I say all of that is the Patriots basically take your quarterback, be it Matt Castle, be it Ryan Mallett, whoever you want to talk about. I'm not saying Garoppolo is going to be those guys, but I mean, you even take people like Deion Branch, right? Deion Branch did really good Super Bowl MVP. Go somewhere else, not the same. Randy Moss, once he leaves, not the same guy. Richard Seymour, once he leaves, he still had a decent year or two with Oakland. But every time they trade you away, you're not the same guy, right? Every time you leave and you think, oh, this is going to be great, you're not the same guy. I mean, they traded away Chandler Jones. I think they traded him. We released him. Either way, he's not with the Patriots anymore.
Yeah, they traded him to Arizona.
Yeah. And Jimmy Collins, they put him over in Cleveland, and they're both going to get paid. But there's no guarantee that they're going to be good once they leave. And with Garoppolo, he might be good. But, I mean, literally we just saw the Patriots win the Super Bowl with Tom Brady, a 39-year-old quarterback. So I don't know if that means that Garoppolo is good or if that means that Garoppolo is in a good system because we saw with
I think it may be a little bit of both.
It could be a little bit of both. But we saw with Matt Castle, he went 11-5 with them in that 1 year when Tom Brady's knee went boom. And then he got to Minnesota and everywhere else, and he wasn't a good quarterback. It was the system. We saw that with all the assistant coaches that the Patriots have had. Romeo Crennel, Bill O'Brien, he left and came back. He left. Josh McDaniel left and came back, and wasn't the same when he was a coach at Denver. Like, we've seen these people leave the Patriots and not be the same. So there is no quarterback really that's been available that I 100% love all the way. They all have their flaws. You just hope because Garoppolo's so young and we saw how good he can do that he can actually be that guy for, say, the Browns or the Niners or whoever else.
Yeah, and the reason, we got to talk about, this Jimmy Garoppolo hypothetical trade or that's not going to happen. And I think the reason why that they're not going to pull the trigger on the trade is what if, honestly, Tom Brady is one injury away from not playing next year.
Right.
And when you have Jimmy Garoppolo as your backup, I can see why they're not going to trade him.
Right.
That's valuable. A backup quarterback is valuable. We saw how valuable a backup quarterback is with the Dallas Cowboys. We all know how that went. Dak Prescott ended up becoming the Rookie of the Year. Even the Patriots know this. Tom Brady wasn't a rookie, but when Drew Bledsoe got hurt, Tom Brady was inserted to the lineup, and then he won the Super Bowl that year, in 2002.
He is basically, we're going to go back to wrestling for a second. Competition breeds sometimes the best in which you can be, right? WCW, WWF, when they were going against the Wars.
The Monday Night Wars. Yes.
They had the best kind of competition, and they were doing the best of. That's what the Attitude Era, right? That was, for myself and a lot of people, we think that's the best time in wrestling. competition breeds sometimes your best performances. And the reason I say that is because Brady knows as well as anybody, like we talked about, right, about how good a backup can be if you give him a chance. So he might be looking over at Garoppolo like, oh, no, I got to do this. Hold on. No. Okay, I got to be on my game, to where if he leaves, then the pressure's off of him, right? Because whoever, Jacoby Brissett or whoever else they bring in as a backup, he's like, oh, yeah, that guy, whatever. But he saw coming with Garoppolo, it's like, oh, actually, he's kind of good. And this isn't like in 2008 when he was, 28, 29 years old, when he's like, oh, I'll be fine. This time, he's a little bit older, and he's like, oh, okay, I got to make sure I do this. And like you said, one injury away. I mean, the Patriots basically want to get the number 1 overall pick for Garoppolo. And at that point, if you get that, then fine. I totally get you trading him. It's number 1 overall pick. You're going to take Myles Garrett because, of course, you will. And that totally makes sense.
Yeah, and, the Patriots don't want anything less than the number 1 pick. And remember, the Browns have 2 first-round picks. I think they're willing to trade the number 12 pick, but I do think that they want a top 5 pick. And they're basically, if the Browns end up making the trade for Garoppolo, they're basically trading Myles Garrett for Jimmy G.
Yeah.
Which I honestly think, at first, I wasn't a fan of because, Myles Garrett, I do think he's going to be one of those generational players.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, this is a quarterback-driven league. And and honestly, there is no guarantee that Myles Garrett can be good.
Yeah, I mean...
And, Jim Garoppolo, we've seen the talent in him. I think he's really talented. I think he's different than all these other quarterbacks that have come from New England. I think he's a lot better than Matt Castle. I can see it in the release. His release is quick. I'm talking about Jimmy Garoppolo. I think he's different. I think he's different from all the other backup quarterbacks that have come from that franchise.
And even though this team won the Super Bowl, right, it's not the same team that 08 Patriots team. Because that 08 Patriots team was coming off of literally the greatest football team I've ever seen in my life. Randy Moss still pretty much in his prime. Wes Welker catching everything thrown to him. That offense was amazing. This offense they had this year wasn't that.
Yeah, and honestly, though, the one thing that Cleveland has been missing ever since it came back as an expansion franchise is a quarterback. They have 23 of them.
Dude, there's a jersey somewhere that has all of the names crossed out. It's a long list, man.
All right, so we still haven't got a chance to talk about Kirk Cousins. So do you want to talk about him before the break or after the break?
Yeah, we'll talk about him after the break, and then we'll kind of talk about all the other moves that have kind of happened with either the Patriots or Alshon Jeffery or anything like that. Yeah.
Yeah. So we're going to discuss Kirk Cousins, the dumpster fire of the professional football team in Washington. Try to talk about Aldon Smith for a little bit if we get to that. But we will discuss all the other free agency deals, and there's a lot of them that happened yesterday. When we get back to Guns to Me Concepts Football Podcast.
Are you looking for help for your fantasy football team? Check out the GSMC Fantasy Football Podcast. Get today's best advice on who to start, who to sit, even who you should draft. From sleeper picks to red-hot lineups, they got it all covered for you. That's gsmcpodcast.com/fantasy-football-podcast. We'll cover traditional leagues, dynasty, PPR, even IDP leagues. When you need fantasy help, there's just one show to hit up. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit gsmcpodcast.com for more info.
And welcome back to Guns to Me Concepts Football Podcast. And we talked about a lot of quarterbacks today, where we think we're going to go or where they think they're not going to go. But there was one quarterback we didn't get a chance to talk about yet, and we're literally about 35 minutes into this podcast episode. And that tells you how much we had to talk about.
Pretty much.
But
Kirk Cousins,
and he
hates Washington so much.
He hates the Washington professional football team so much. He hates that organization.
He tried to do the power play move, which I respect. He basically went to Snyder and was like, all right, look, man, you're trading away my wide receiver. You're trading away my other wide receiver. You're not trading away, but one of them's gone. Deshaun Jackson's gone. You got the other one, Pierre Garçon. He wanted to go to San Francisco to play with his old quarterback coach or offensive coordinator. The tight end you have, he gets concussions all the time. The defense is no good. What do you want from me? I'm just going to be out there by myself?
You have inconsistency at the running back position. We saw that last year. So Kirk Cousins wants to be out of Washington, and he asked for a trade to Dan Snyder. And then Dan Snyder basically told him, don't hold your breath.
Yeah, he basically told him to go believe himself. Yeah, because we talked about Jerry Jones. He may have the biggest ego in all of sports. Dan Snyder's up there too, by the way, for no other reason than just look at the name of the team, and he refused to change that. So he's basically not going to budge. And I don't even honestly blame him that much, because his thing is basically like, look, man, like worst case scenario, even if he hates me, he's got to do this whole franchise thing. And even though we don't have wide receivers or maybe a running back or whatever, we have a quarterback, right? As much as you may think Cousins may be good, bad, or whatever, he's a top 10 to 15 quarterback, which is the upper level of quarterbacks, right? Because he's not Aaron Rodgers, not Ben Roethlisberger, he's not Tom Brady. Fine. But he's in that whole kind of, you know, Matthew Stafford, Andy Dalton, Ryan Tannehill kind of range, which is good, but you don't know if it's like championship good, right? And it may not be, but it's still something that's pretty good. Like, he can throw for 5,000 yards. That's fantastic. So can Matthew Stafford. That hasn't led to any kind of winning there. So, you know, at least Snyder's thinking, at least I got a quarterback, worst case scenario.
Yeah, and honestly, Kirk Cousins has every right to leave that organization. That organization is a dumpster fire. They have not been able to handle things well.
No.
We've seen how Scott McCloughan and how that thing went. And honestly, this team has a lot less talent than they did last year. Deshaun Jackson and Pierre Garçon, they both left to other teams. You know, Deshaun Jackson went to the Bucks. Pierre Garçon went to the 49ers. So they're not going to be there. And honestly, it marks the first time in NFL history that a team will lose two 1,000-yard receivers from the previous season. That does not happen, folks. That tells you that dysfunctional that this team is. And, Cousins did receive that non-exclusive tag last year. He received the exclusive tag this year. So the Washington football team and Cousins could, they can work out a long-term deal until July 15. But honestly, though, Cousins has signed the franchise tag as of this morning, according to Adam Schefter. But that doesn't mean he's going to play. Honestly, he can just hold out until, like, Labor Day weekend and just be like, hey, guys, I'm here. Let's go play football.
Right.
So, honestly, though, I do think that he will end up with the 49ers. If it's not going to be this year, it's definitely going to be 2018. I really do think so.
Well, even the thing is, Schefter was even saying that, like, Snyder was saying, just out of spite or pettiness or whatever you want to call it, they'll franchise him again for a third year and pay him like $30 million.
How are you going to... Okay.
Because that's the only way they can keep their quarterback. They're going to do it.
And I know that, but the thing is, though, if the 49ers are going to offer you the number 2 pick in the draft, and then you're not going to do that, you're telling me you're going to decline that? I
feel like you don't understand how egos work sometimes with dudes to have that much money.
And that's the reason why... that's the reason why Washington. That's the reason why the professional football team in Washington will not win a Super Bowl in a while.
So Snyder,
what deals like that? You have an unhappy quarterback that doesn't even want to be there, and your team is just dysfunctional. You have not. Okay, they extended Jay Gruden a couple days ago. That was the first extension that Dan Snyder has ever had. No coach has ever lasted more than 4 years there.
And I feel like they did that. Like, don't get me wrong, Jay Gruden did well, although, God, if you can find these clips, they are just fantastic. When they tied the game and Jay Gruden had no idea that that's actually a thing in the NFL, he was just like, well, I guess it's better than a loss. We didn't lose, but, we tied. And he seemed like so kind of like bewildered, like they didn't know that a tie could actually exist. Like, all that said, he did well. Like, he did good for the time he was a coach, so I get the extension. But also... that extension seemed to come when they were just like, where's our GM? Scott, where's Scott? Go find Scott. I don't know where Scott went. Okay, we need to figure out this new GM situation. Oh, everybody knows our GM situation's bad. Okay, Jay, come here. Extension for you. Look at how good we are as an organization. We extend our head coaches. First time ever. Look at us. What about our GM? No, don't worry about our GM. But he's fine. He's resting. He's just over in the corner. Don't worry, it's fine. Like, they're trying to make everything look like it's all nice and cozy and everything's not, sinking, like they're not on the Titanic. But you talked about, like, oh, why wouldn't Snyder do it if he has a good offer? I feel like you don't know how egos work for billionaires. Like,
I understand that, but you're doing that in spite. You're getting a top 2 pick in the draft for your quarterback.
Because bleep, you don't tell me what to do. That is basically what it is.
Oh my gosh!
At its basic level,
this is the reason why the Redskins are not. Are not good.
Oh yeah, that too. But it's a thing of just like it's the difference between telling someone to take out the trash and asking them to. If you say, "Oh, can you take out the trash?" Yeah, sure. Take out the trash. No. Like, it's the difference between those two types of things, right? And for a billionaire who's been getting his way basically his entire life, and you're going to tell him, I want to be traded? No, I'm not doing it. Like, it's greedy, and it's petty, and it's all the other things. That can all be true. Also, bleep you, I won't do what you tell me, to quote Rage Against the Machine.
I love the Rage Against the Machine quote. But before we move on to the free agency deals here, we got to talk about Scott McCloughan real quick. The professional football team in Washington fired general manager Scott McCloughan on Thursday after a little more than 2 years with the franchise. And the move, honestly, I'm actually not surprised by the move for a few reasons. Scott McCloughan was not even let into the building. He was not even let, and he wasn't at the combine, but that was partly due to attending a family matter. But they had fears of, with him relapsing with his alcohol abuse problems. That I'm not going to touch on that because that's very sensitive.
Sure.
But honestly, with all this has come into fruition here for the Washington football team, this pretty much, I don't see this organization getting any better at all.
No.
And, with his departure was really kind of studying the way, but the way that everything has gone this offseason and the way all the personal issues that Scott McCloughan has dealt with, I'm actually not surprised at all. But I do wish Scott McCloughan well, with getting help with his problems.
Yeah, no, 100%. Like, you hope this goes well for for Washington as a whole. They basically, have the situation now where they lost two 1,000-yard receivers. They might lose their quarterback. The GM is gone. Like, this isn't going to go well for him for the next few years. Even if they have the quarterback, it's basically going to be him on an island versus everybody else. For the GM, I hope he, like you said, hope everything works out for him because, look, we can make jokes about, oh, where's the GM? If all this stuff is true about what's happening, that's a, serious thing because it's not the first time this has happened with him. Yeah,
because he did have those alcohol problems in Seattle.
Right.
I'm not sure if he had those in San Francisco, but, Washington, they think that, this became an issue again, and this was according to ESPN. So, honestly, with his time and his experience, I think if he gets help, I think he's going to get a job pretty soon.
If he can,
if he can get help, I do think he can get an NFL job again. But the thing about Scott McCloughan's tenure in Washington, he actually didn't do too bad. He has 17 draft picks, 13 remain on the roster. 3 of them are projected starters, if healthy. Josh Doxson is also part of that thing as well. But the thing about Scott McCloughan's tenure is that they weren't able to come to a long-term contract agreement with Kirk Cousins, and it pretty much has led to the turmoil of this organization as it is right now. But, yeah, man, this is going to be a very interesting offseason for the Washington professional football team there.
So, other things around the NFL, really quick, we're just kind of going to go all these things. So, Alshon Jeffery.
Yeah.
He went to the Eagles. Tiny little deal, 1 year, $14 million. Basically, it's going to be a thing where we know Jeffrey's good, but if he can do really well in Philadelphia, you finally, give Carson Wentz a wide receiver that's not Jordan Matthews that can actually do some things. So it works out for both sides. They get a good wide receiver, and if Jeffrey can do well, hey, more money for you. So that part's nice. The Patriots, somehow, don't know how, they just keep doing these things. They're going to get what's the wide receiver's name from New Orleans? I'm totally blanking on the name right now. Brandon Cooks. They might trade him for Malcolm Butler, which, of course, they're just going to take people that and trade them away because that's what the Patriots do. And they got Stephon Gilmore out of Buffalo because, of course, they got him. Although they spent a lot of money on him. Like
they did. I think it was like 5 years and $65 million with 12. I think I forgot. I don't know.
I think it was 40 guaranteed.
Yeah, okay. I don't know the exact number, but it is. It's a lot of money. This team doesn't spend a lot of money on like any free agents. So.
But it could be a thing where, kind of like the Revis thing, I understand Revis was only there for a year, but it could be a thing where they, have him for a couple of years, and then once the contract gets too hard, they're like, okay, never mind, you can go now. But I was just having fun. No, you can go now. It's okay. You can go away.
Yeah, and then you got the Chicago Bears. They landed Mike Glennon to a 3-year, $40 million contract. It's going to be $19 million guaranteed. They also signed safety Quentin Demps to a 3-year, $13.5 million, with $5 million coming in the first year. One of the biggest deals that happened, actually, Jacksonville, they spent the money like they always do. They landed 2 pretty good defensive free agents. They got Calais Campbell,
right,
and then they got AJ Bouye from the Texans, who was one of the top Texans cornerbacks last year. He received a 5-year deal worth $67.5 million with 26 fully guaranteed.
Right.
So the Jacksonville Jaguars continue to spend that money. So hopefully it comes into wins, because Jacksonville, they've been one of those teams that spend the most money in free agency, but they have not won a whole lot of games.
Right. And hopefully this, because now you got what's his name, Coughlin. So you think he can actually do some stuff, actually being the guy that runs the stuff. The funny thing was, you said Glennon was $19 million guaranteed, right?
Over 3 years.
Over 3 years, and it's basically $15 million per year, which all that basically means is they're going to give him a trial run this year, and if that backfires, they owe him $4 million for the rest of it, and they're basically going to say, like, all right, that's it. You can go home now. We're done with this. Like, it's basically going to be like a 1-year trial run, no?
Yeah, basically, that's the way I think of it.
Yeah.
And then with Calais Campbell's deal with the Jaguars, it's a 4-year, $60 million deal.
Mm-hmm.
$30 million guaranteed, so they overpaid again. I think they kind of overpaid him a little bit. That's just my thing. But yeah, there's a lot of deals that have happened. There's like way too many to talk about, man. But free agency got off to a really hot start.
Right.
I would say we have a huge, interesting time period ahead of us. All right, well, that concludes the show. We had a very long show today. I know. It's pretty hot in the studio right now, so we gotta. I don't know, man. It's hell hot in the studio right now. It's like I don't know about that, but yeah, we're gonna to go. I'm actually gonna be back on Monday. We're going to discuss a lot. Well, I'm going to discuss pretty much anything that happens over the next 72 hours in football. I'm pretty sure there's going to be something that occurs. I think Tony Romo might be traded by Monday. I definitely will talk about Aldon Smith. We didn't get to it today because.
Didn't have time.
We ran out of time. But yeah, I will discuss some stuff on Monday. So guys, tune in for that. But as always, I'm Jeremiah.
And I'm Anthony.
And I'd like to thank you guys for tuning in to the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network, from movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.